Hey guys, welcome back to yet another review. As I said earlier, I am back with another BBC Three, well, it's not a TV series, film thing review. And today I'm going to be reviewing Murdered by My Father, which I can't remember any of the actors that were in it. I don't think there were any particularly big names in it. But let's have a little discussion about this. So, a brief overview of the plot is, well, it's kind of, the major spoiler is in the title. It's not like a fake out. It's not like, oh yeah, we're going to call this Murdered by My Father. But in the end, you know what? We're gonna throw them for 6 and we're actually going to let her survive. No. It pretty much follows the story of a girl, Salma, who is murdered by her father after shaming him, I guess, is what happened. Like one of the reviews I said, yes, I articulated the review. One of the reviews I read said it's a case following honour killings. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this was an actual case. But this film shows the journey, as with Murdered by My Boyfriend. It starts at the end and then it gives the audience a backtrack to see exactly how it got to that point. So this was a really well done film. I don't know if I'd place it on the same level with Murdered by My Boyfriend or with 13. It's different, and it is very interesting, considering I don't come from this culture. I don't come from a culture where arranged marriages are a thing and where fathers are willing to murder their daughters or to disown their daughters if they don't marry the people that they're assigned to. To me that sounds crazy, but then again, it's not my culture, so I make no comments about other cultures because I don't understand them. But I did find this film an interesting indictment on that. So let's start with the performances. The performances were great. You really do see the emotional journey that these characters make throughout the plot. Because the thing about this is it is very depressing and it is very hopeless. You kind of don't see a positive outcome to the situation that Salma is in. And, I mean, even in the end, there is no positive outcome. Spoiler alert, but it's in the title. There is no positive outcome for her. It's just one thing after another. And Salma gets an emotional battering in this. Complete emotional battering. As does her father. And I think that is key to understanding why he does what he does in the end. You have to see him go through this emotional roller coaster before you can understand how he gets to the point of desperation. Because he's not a monster to begin with. He's not someone that would have killed his daughter. He adores his daughter at the beginning. I think even he adores his daughter at the end. It's just his reputation becomes entwined with his relationship with his daughter. He sees his advancement and his family's advancement in Salma's marriage. So when she doesn't marry who she's supposed to, when she shames Hassoon, is it Hassoon? I think it's Hassoon, by having a relationship with Imi, think her father starts to see that there is no hope, and oh, it's just, this is a really hopeless film, and it's really sad. But I think it's supposed to be like that, to provide an indictment on that sort of idea that reputation and advancement is everything. He takes his daughter's life because she won't do as she's told. And to me that just seems so strange. I can't imagine my dad killing me because I haven't done as I was told. It's just, I can't understand it because I haven't been raised in that type of culture, and I'm not saying anything against arranged marriages or anything, but it seems really strange to me that these honour killings have happened, that fathers have killed their daughters for disobeying them. And to me that just seems so, it just seems so old-fashioned. But then again, I guess that's what this film was getting at. Where does the line between tradition and individual freedom come? And what happens when someone who's just become so consumed with tradition to advance status has a daughter that is motivated by her own personal freedom? And she does try to do what her father wants, but she just can't. And that's where the hopelessness comes in this film. I've gone on a major detour there. I can't make any comment on the culture that this film is very much based in an Indian traditional culture. I can't comment about that, so I'm just going to shut up before I offend more people than I already have. Shall we carry on? Let's carry on. So the acting was sublime. The script itself, the emotional journey that was depicted was fantastic. You kind of have to see the progression in the circumstances portrayed to understand why they have to happen. And you have to see what leads her father to the point where the only way he can see out of this situation is to kill his daughter and then, spoiler alert, kill himself by stabbing himself in the neck. We'll get on to that in a minute. I'm not sure how there was just a few technical things I didn't quite understand about that, but we'll get to that in a minute, okay? Just calm. Yeah, I think it is vital in reconstructions of murder cases. You have to see how things were allowed to happen the way that they did. Like in Murdered by My Boyfriend, you see how he starts to become more possessive, and this turns into an abusive relationship, and then she gets out, but his abusive nature continues, which leads to him killing her. In this film, you see Salma's father get to a point where he is so desperate that he can't do anything but kill his daughter. And I don't know if it's the guilt or I don't know what, if it's him completely losing hope, but it's a very difficult, they're very difficult situations, and you kind of have to understand them, what led, the events leading up to them, the catalyst that allowed this to happen, before you can truly understand why the attackers, assailants, do what they do. The score was fantastic. BBC 3. You are doing some good stuff with cinematography and music and script and acting. Please keep it up. Please. If we could keep away from some of the really weird stuff BBC Three used to do when you were on air, that'd be great. Some of the negatives, the only thing I can really think of is just a technical thing, because when her father killed himself, he stabs himself in the neck and then throws himself from a window. But when he lands on the ground, he has only a little stab mark here in his breastbone. And yet you're telling me that produced the spray of blood? It looked like he stabbed himself in the throat when he did it, but the only marks on him seemed to just be a little stab mark in the breastbone. And the fall didn't look that high, but then again, it's not the height that will kill you, it's the last few metres. It was just little niggly things like that, I think. But on the whole, this was a great film. It provides a shocking, to me as someone who has been born and raised in a culture where arranged marriages, I don't know anyone who's been married in an arranged marriage. I don't know this culture, I haven't been exposed to it. It provides a shocking insight into what could drive a father to kill his daughter, and I found it fascinating. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Even though Salma, love, darling, honey, this is something I didn't quite understand. Going back to it's not so much a positive or a negative. It's more I don't quite understand how or why Salma would have done this. But when she spoilers, when she has finally gotten away from her father after the engagement party, when she's been locked in her room and she finally leaves, she goes to Imi's house and, you know, she's okay, she's safe. All she has to do now is go to Birmingham and she's alright. She just needs to run off with Imi. She'll be fine. And then she gets texts from what she thinks is her little brother. Didn't her father have that phone? Instantly I would be thinking, is this actually my brother? Or is this my dad? And then she goes back to her dad and she keeps provoking him. At this point, I think it's not a winnable situation by any means, because her father has disowned her. But I think I would have left. I wouldn't have kept provoking him, which then led to him strangling her to death. And I don't know what happened to the knife. He had a knife. Don't know what happened to that. He decides to suffocate her and then stab himself. It's just, I don't understand why she would have gone back. I understand she kind of wanted to make it right with her father, but he gives her a chance to leave and she doesn't. I would have probably given him more time to cool off as well. She'd seen her brother, she could have buggered off. All would have been fine. But then again, I think as a viewer, you are you're not an impartial observer. You are an observer to these events. And I think it's easy to say, oh, I would do this. But if you were in that situation, you wouldn't. Because you are not this character in this moment. You haven't had their background. You haven't had their experiences. So, I think the thing about these situations, like in Murdered by My Boyfriend, Murdered by My Father, you think you know how you would act, but you don't. You're only a human being. Human beings make mistakes, and sometimes these mistakes escalate and lead to murder. And these films are so good. I would highly recommend watching Murdered by My Boyfriend. I think it came out in 2014. Probably available somewhere on the internet. And then watching Murdered by My Father. They will give you such a brutally brilliant insight into domestic abuse and into honour killings. Oh, I loved it. I would give it a 9.5 out of 10 just because of the mild technical mishaps every now and again. Oh, but it was so good. It was so good. That's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down below. And as always, have a fantastic day.